Hello, so today we're going to be discussing The Thin Executioner by Darren Shan? Shan? Yeah. So, first of all, the main character of this novel is Jebel Rum, a young boy who is the executioner's son in a small town called Wadi. Most of these names in this book are really hard to pronounce, so if I say them wrong and you know I'm saying them wrong, then please correct me or forgive me because I'm not perfect. So our story starts out when Jebel's dad is in the middle of an execution and he chops off this lady's head, whatever. And he stands up and proclaims his retirement and starts talking about how he would like his two eldest sons, to compete in a competition. It starts with an M. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. But he would like his eldest sons to compete in this competition to become the next executioner. He completely leaves out his youngest son, Jebel, which disgraces his name, and he feels like he won't ever be able to show his face anywhere ever again. So he decides that he is going to take this quest to this mountain called Tubagat. And supposedly a god called Saba-Eid lives in this mountain who grants invincibility to questers who visit the mountain and sacrifice a slave and are successful on their quest, which means they don't take any means of traveling besides foot, because there are several rivers in this make-believe land and they are completely accessible to the mountain, but you can't use them. So Jebel somehow convinces this slave to go on this quest with him to free his family from slavery. He gets petitioned by the High Lord to go on this quest to this mountain and restore his honor, whatever. So they set out, and they're having a good time yucking it up with the small settlements along the river who are always very kind to questers. His slave's name is Tel Hassani, by the way. And they start traveling across the country. I can actually show you. They start here and travel along the Asurat, which is this river, and they go through Shihat, which is a city full of lizard worshippers. It's really odd. And through Kathib, where they meet these two men who say they're traders, called Master Blair and Master Bush. More on them later. And then they travel to Hassa, where they buy winter clothes to travel through the mountains here. And then they travel to Abu Sik, which is a city where not a lot of people get to go to, because the people of Abu Sik, the Abu Sik, don't really interact with people and kill them brutally when they attempt to enter their city. So they get permittance because they meet this girl who lives in Abu Sik, who travels with them through the Sik itself. And she dies fighting off this giant monster, which is horrible, and her dying breath is telling them to cut off her head to take to her parents. So they get to the city, and they give her parents her head, and they have this big ceremony where they say that cutting off her head and putting it on this big weather vane type thing helps preserve her spirit and help them remember her. So they leave, and then they start traveling through the mountains again, and they meet Bush and Blair again. And this time they're not so kind. They actually sell Tel Hassani to a different slaver, and they enslave Jebel and make him their own personal servant. So Jebel travels with them and helps them rob graves, which he doesn't like doing because part of his religion is not to disturb the dead. So he's very uneasy when it comes to grave robbing. But eventually he makes it to another city where he sees Tel Hassani working in the streets. So he runs away from Master Bush and Master Blair, and runs with Tel Hassani, and they leave. So they start traveling with this religious group because they saved their lives from enslavement. Saved their lives. But they believe that instead of God accepting the good things that you do and accepting you into the afterlife that way, they see that God accepts the pain that you've been through, and then he accepts you into the afterlife that way. So they travel places and try and convert people to this religion, but they mutilate themselves along the way, which is really scary, and most of the descriptions of that is interesting. But they finally get away from this group of missionaries by going to this small collection of people who worship bats instead of lizards, and they try and attack these people for not converting to their religion, and the bats attack them because the bats are part of the race of people. They interact together and they help each other. It's a very balanced system. So they attack this religious group, but Tel Hassani and Jebel get away, and they complete their trek to Baigat, which is the mountain. And somehow the religious group survives and meets them at the mouth of the mountain and attacks them. And the leader of the group stabs Tel Hassani through the chest. And so Jebel quickly takes him into the cave where he had to be sacrificed and refuses to kill him, because along the way he's developed this friendship with his slave, which is very looked down upon in his society. So he feels terrible for betraying the people that he loves and the people that taught him, but Tel Hassani has become such a good friend to him over the course of this trip and saved his life so many times, he just can't kill him. So Saba Eid sees that he is truly a hero and grants him invincibility. So he returns home through an underground tunnel within days. Because of his invincibility, he can travel long distances without getting winded, or thirsty, or tired, or hungry. So he goes back and he wins the competition by a landslide. And he's at the acceptance ceremony of becoming the executioner of this town, and part of the acceptance is completing an execution. So he has this woman up on the executioner's block, and he's holding his axe above her head, and he cannot kill her. So by refusing to kill her, he can take 3 blows himself, and if he survives those blows, then he can continue being the executioner, and the girl gets to go free. So they call the runner-up of the competition to give him his 3 blows. So he starts hitting him, and then I guess the crowd suddenly remembers that he's invincible because nothing happens. And so Jebel continues to sit there and take these blows of an axe to his invincible skin, and he decides he's still going to take the role of executioner after he says to the High Lord, I'm still executioner because I took my 3 blows and I'm still alive. And so he decides that as executioner, he's going to let free every single person who comes on his block, because in Wadi, they execute every criminal, no matter what their crime. Theft, adultery, murder, they all get executed. So if they're petty crimes, Jebel just lets them go. But crime starts to rise steadily in Wadi over the years, and Jebel realizes that he needs to execute certain people. So he does that, and instead of marrying the High Lord's daughter, which normally happens when an executioner is appointed, he marries her servant, who he was friends with all of his life and had an amazing friendship with. And they have 8 kids, and it's beautiful, and yay. So what I didn't particularly like about this novel is he focused a lot on the beginning of the trip and took at least 200 pages describing the first month of their trip. And so it got towards the end and it was describing like 4 weeks in one paragraph. And by doing so, you kind of lose the sense of time of the novel, and so you're like, how did this happen over the course of a year? It feels like it only was a month or two, because whole weeks happened in one sentence or one paragraph. So if it was better paced, I think it would have been a lot better, but also having pages upon pages of just hiking and eating and sleeping would be very boring, I agree. And a lot of the things that happened in the book were very repetitive, I felt, and could definitely do without some of the action that happened. Overall, I really liked the book. I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 stars and would definitely recommend it to anyone who enjoys high fantasy or adventure novels. This has been my book talk over The Thin Executioner by Darren Shan? Sorry, still can't pronounce it. I hope to be doing more of these in the future. Thank you. Bye.